Hello everyone, welcome to the session on GenRocket integration with HyperExecute from Lambda Test. In this journey, we are going to see a simple use case and its test data challenges, followed by a quick overview on GenRocket project setup. From there, we will learn most commonly used GenRocket integration approach. Specifically, we will uncover the secrets of how GenRocket seamless data generation happens at the HyperExecute platform. The prerequisite required for this integration are HyperExecute platform setup to orchestrate and run the scripts, and then the GenRocket to perform synthetic test data generation. We highly recommend familiarizing yourself with GenRocket and HyperExecute platforms by referring to their respective knowledge base portals. Let's kickstart the journey by taking a closer look at the GenRocket Bank application, a demo application provided by GenRocket. In this scenario, we shall assume a role of admin persona who enters into the application in order to add a new user to the system. This process involves filling out a form with the user's information to create a new record with a positive dataset, whereas the negative dataset like incorrect SSN and birth date less than 18 years results in error message. So the test data challenges here are variety of data combinations are required. Data including positive, negative and edge cases with condition data is required to validate the workflow and the error messages. GenRocket is the ultimate solution to overcome all the test data challenges, offering seamless support for data generation and setup in any volume, variety, and format. Prior to integration activities, it is essential to configure the test data project. Once the base project setup is done, GenRocket provides a capability to create the test data cases called G-cases. G-cases are one of the GenRocket's intelligent and powerful feature, allows us to generate the data based on actual test case need. Defining negative G-cases are easy because you get to control and design the patterns on how negative data needs to be generated. For example, you could see that we have linked 4 different generators to generate the invalid SSN. As a result, every fourth data in the dataset generates an invalid format SSN data. Also, even before the actual data generation, data preview feature allows us to visually validate the data to be generated. Great progress so far. Let's deep dive into the most awaiting section, GenRocket integration approach. Although GenRocket provides multiple approaches for integration with other application or tools and frameworks, for the Lambda Test HyperExecute integration, we will primarily focus on the most commonly used integration approach using GenRocket runtime APIs, where this approach allows us to access the GenRocket components directly to modify or run to generate the required data. Remember, we have designed 2 G-cases in our GenRocket project. The first G-case called negative dataset generates the invalid dataset for SSN and birth date, whereas our second G-case called positive dataset generates the positive data for the happy path scenarios. Fasten your seatbelts as we deep dive to explore more on the integration approach using GenRocket runtime APIs, which is simple and straightforward. Navigate to the IDE and create a new project to be run in the HyperExecute platform. Import the GenRocket engine and define necessary variables. Initialize the GenRocket engines followed by load GenRocket scenarios, and then add the G-cases on top of the loaded scenarios. For less complex and memory-intensive data requirements, GenRocket recommends using the Scenario Run in Memory API. It generates and stores the data in memory, speeding up the test execution by eliminating file read and write operations. Alternatively, for data requirements in any file format, the Scenario Run API can be used. It's time to run the scripts and view the results in the console. Fantastic! GenRocket components are triggered to generate and store the data in memory for the automation scripts. Now, for negative test data generation, replace the positive dataset G-cases with negative dataset G-cases. Easy. Let's quickly see and learn how GenRocket integrated in the real-time automation project to be orchestrated and run in the HyperExecute platform. Navigate to the pom.xml file in your project and add these 4 GenRocket dependency jars to access the GenRocket components and APIs. And then navigate to the automation scripts where test data setup step is performed. We need to call the GenRocket components to integrate and generate data at runtime as per the test case need. Now set up your Lambda test account and profile, and then navigate to the HyperExecute platform to get the username and the access key for your account. As mentioned in the HyperExecute documentation, we need to prepare HyperExecute YAML file to provide instructions and a HyperExecute command line interface to initiate the test execution job. We can download the HyperExecute CLI and a predefined YAML file from HyperExecute documentation portal and place it in the project root folder. HyperExecute offers just-in-time testing infrastructure. To ensure the environment readiness for GenRocket, we need to focus on the prescript section in the YAML file. These commands enables to set up the GenRocket folder structure to integrate seamlessly in the HyperExecute environment. All set, let's execute the HyperExecute test execution command in the IDE console with username and the access key, and witness the magics of data generation from GenRocket at the HyperExecute platform. Fantastic! The execution looks successful. Now navigate back to the Lambda test HyperExecute dashboard to see and analyze the results and logs for this test run. Truly amazing. HyperExecute offers an impressive capability, allowing us to observe the execution in real time and even in the video mode. The most fascinating aspect of this journey is GenRocket integrates at the test case level and generates data precisely tailored to meet the requirements of each test case. Congrats! We have successfully learned about the GenRocket integration and execution in the Lambda Test HyperExecute platform. Thank you for watching GenRocket Solutions video. For any queries, please reach out to our knowledge base and support team.